So we're starting with the new moon. Lunar calendars tend to start the new month with or just after the new moon. During the new moon phase, the moon rises and sets at roughly the same time as the sun. It is only during this phase that a solar eclipse can occur if the sun and moon are aligned in a way that the moon's shadow falls on the earth. If you've ever seen a solar eclipse, you know that the moon itself is not really visible before or after the eclipse. We only know it's there because it blocks the sun. This is because the dark side of the moon is facing the earth, and its relative proximity to the bright sun just overwhelms any light the moon would send to earth. This is true of every new moon phase, whether or not there is an eclipse. The moon just won't be visible, but if you could find it in the sky, it would be relatively close to the sun. As the position of the moon relative to the sun shifts, we start to see the crescent moon. It is the sighting of this crescent moon that traditionally signaled the start of a new month in a lunar calendar. Today, the Muslim calendar is still at least somewhat dependent on the actual sighting of the crescent moon, which could depend on clouds or other weather conditions, while the Jewish calendar is based on the calculated date of the new moon, with slight adjustments allowed for holidays to fall on certain days of the week if necessary. This crescent moon is called a waxing crescent because the bright portion will grow larger over time. Based on the lines of sight, you can also see that this moon is mostly up during the daytime. It will rise just after the sun, but won't be visible until just after sunset, when the light of the sun is blocked to allow us to see the much dimmer moon. It will set shortly after the sun has set, allowing for limited viewing time. As the moon continues to move around the earth, the waxing crescent will get larger and larger and be up for a longer period of time after sunset. About a week after the new moon, the waxing crescent will become a waxing half. At this point, the moon is up during roughly the second half of the day and the first half of the night. It may even be visible during the daytime, since its location in the sky will be farther from the sun. After the half moon comes the waxing gibbous, as the moon starts to look closer and closer to full. During this time, the moon is also up more of the night, though it may also be visible in the later afternoon or evening. About a week after the half moon, the moon will be full. It will rise at sunset and set at sunrise and be visible throughout the night. If you lived in ancient times and hoped to do any work or travel at night, the time around the full moon would be the best time for that if you needed light. It's worth noting that this is the only time that a lunar eclipse can occur if the sun and earth are aligned in a way that the earth's shadow falls on the moon. After the full moon, instead of waxing or growing larger, the moon starts waning or growing smaller and goes through the same phases in reverse. The first phase is the waning gibbous. This can be differentiated from the waxing gibbous in two ways. First, the left side of the moon stays full instead of the right side. And second, it is visible at different times. It rises later at night and may still be visible for a time in the morning. About a week after the full moon, we are down to a half again. The waning half will be up for the second half of the night and the first half of the day, directly opposite of the waxing half. After the half, the moon continues shrinking as a waning crescent. Like the waxing crescent, the waning crescent is up mostly during the day, and as it gets closer to the sun, it is less and less likely that you will see it. The best time to see the waning crescent is before sunrise. It should be rising just before the sun in the east. This brings us back to the new moon, and the lunar month is complete. It is roughly a week from new to half, then from half to full, then from full back to half, and half back to new. So the whole cycle takes close to 4 weeks. Technically, it's slightly longer than that at 29.5 days. And from Wiki Commons, here are better images of the waxing and waning moon from Earth. I only showed the view from the northern hemisphere earlier, since that is both what I am most familiar with and what would have been familiar to people living in the Middle East region in Bible times. However, the view from the southern hemisphere is rotated about 180 degrees from that. Here are both views side by side for comparison.